Welcome back to Brilliant Fishing. Today, we're going to talk about springtime crappie fishing. I'm here today. I've been excited to do this for a while. I'm here with Shane Walser of Yadkin Lakes Crappie Guides. Shane's involved in some guiding and a whole bunch of other stuff, but he's going to be the guy we want to talk to this morning to just kind of tell us about springtime crappie fishing, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk tips, techniques, locations, that kind of stuff. But before we really dive into the technical aspect of it, I'd like to just give Shane an opportunity to tell us, a little bit about who you are, what you're involved with, and give you a chance to kind of.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on with you guys this morning. It's like I said, we've talked about this for a while, and but I'm Shane Walser. I run Yadkin Lakes Crappie Guides, but also work with Catch the Fever Outdoors. I'm their national wholesale and distribution rep. So I've been lucky enough over the last several years to push my dreams to the limit and actually get into the fishing industry and be in it full time. But I've been guiding for several years. I've been full-time guiding for, it's probably almost 3-4 years now. Okay. So I've put a lot more involvement to the Catch the Fever side of it as well, being able to go to these shows, go to events, go to the expos, be at different places to meet all different people in the industry. So been blessed with that, but I'm just locally here from North Carolina, just in Welcome, North Carolina. I was born and raised and live in Midway, and High Rock's my home lake, but I fish about 8 different lakes all through the year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So you guide on several different
I got on several different lakes. It gives it puts it to where kind of what we're going to talk about on the spawn side of fish.
Sure.
It helps me in certain times of the year being able to guide on several different lakes. When fish get finicky and go into that spawn, I can move locations, and the spawn is not the same everywhere you go.
Okay. I like it. So, well, cool. Well, I knew we had the right guy here to talk with us about this today. Just before we get into some of the springtime crappie fishing, as far as the guiding, just to talk to you briefly about that. You said that's led you into some other things, but you like with Catch the Fever and so forth. But you still guide.
Yep, I still guide. My time is limited on doing it, but I'm still that's one thing that whenever I went to Catch the Fever and they come to me and we started working together and doing stuff and start working with them. I chased my dream into guiding. I didn't want to give it completely up. Sure. I tapered back. They've been great to work with. But still, there's still going to be, there's days that I'm going to guide. I mean, that's part of it. I love being able to get out on the water. I love watching families make memories. I love watching people break their PBs and how many people come out there and say, I've never seen a crappie this big. Right. Because all they've done is bank fish and catch them males when they move up in the spring. But that's just a passion that I always do it. Even if I have to eat my personal time on the weekends, I'll never give up guiding.
Yeah, I can see where that's a lot of fun. I think as a fisherman, we kind of move in from like we want to catch that fish, and we want to get that PB, and I don't think that ever goes away. But then there's something to be said for like you want to see other people catch their PB. You want to see the excitement on their face, and that's a lot of fun. So.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that kind of is a segue into what we're going to talk about next, which is springtime crappie fishing. You talk about people that, they kind of fish the banks. They're going after those males in the springtime, and you got sort of that big herd of crappie fishermen that come out, and they really just do only springtime, bank crappie fishing, minnow under a bobber. But there's a lot of other opportunities out there to catch them, and so let's
absolutely.
talk a little bit about that.
You're exactly right. Most people think, there's a season for crappie. Well, my season runs 12 months out of the year. It's but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people come out. The saying is when the dogwoods are blooming. Right. That's when everybody wants to go hit the water, which is great. That's when the fishing's on fire. You're going to catch a huge number of fish from the bank because those males are moved up already. Right. By that time, most of the females have already done their thing, and they went back out and relax them for a while, feeding back up, getting their energy back. But yeah, there's a huge portion of people that just don't realize how good the fishing can be. Yeah. Starting in January and February and rolling through it, because a lot of times to go catch those trophy fish or around our areas are going to be on High Rock, baiting some of those in the spring. It's probably going to be February. Okay. That's a hot month to really jump on them springtime big females. Now, you're going to catch them all through February, March, and going into there. But just in patterns for years, just like yesterday, we were catching some big females yesterday. And those females are already sitting in 10 foot of water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's these fish have patterns. You just have to learn how to pattern your lake.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard, if you want to catch the big fat mamas, they're the first ones to sort of move up. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So, we're getting ready to move now. I mean, we're probably already in, would you say, what we're calling the pre-spawn pattern on most of our lakes?
These fish we're in the pre-spawn pattern with it for sure. Like I said, after being on the water yesterday and seeing what we did, most of our fish are better fish 10, 12 foot of water is where they were at.
Okay.
We fished 20, 25 foot. We caught some fish, but you could tell that they've already started their move.
Okay.
I think the biggest portion of that is what I go off of is the length of the days, how much sunlight we got in the day.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. So that's good. Yeah. So you're looking for, and so that would be pretty consistent by time of year then. Length.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Once these days start lengthening, I pay attention to the length of the day. I'm watching my temperatures, and I'm also watching my wind in my spring. That's going to tell me exactly what's going to happen in those times. If I've got, starting in February, going into it, if you see to where I've got 3 days or 3 nights of 50 degree or plus, with light variable winds with it, on that 4th day, you better be on the water somewhere chasing shallow crappie.
Okay.
Because that's going to dictate that temperature going up. That temperature's going to rise fast. Having these spikes at night, we get one warm night and then a cool night. Well, if we've got 2 warm nights or a night or 2 warm, and then we got two or three cool nights, and we've got, like we've had for the last couple of weeks, 20, 30 mile an hour winds.
Yeah,
that water's going to cool off way faster than what it's going to take to warm up during the day.
That makes sense.
So, especially the way some of our lakes run. A lot of times, the way on High Rock, usually that wind's either coming straight down the middle of that gut or it's coming straight across, blowing in and out of the creeks. There's usually very little crosswinds that come across the lake, the way it lays out.
That makes sense. No, well, that's good. I thought about the length of the day, but I hadn't really considered about the wind, how much of a factor that would be.
Length of the day is great, but when I get into this time of year, I'm watching the length because I know what the length's going to progress as we go through the month. But also, I'm watching those nights. A lot of times, when those 3 nights hit, usually when I'm out of town now, but but it's not. But if you watch those nights and you've got it where it's a 50 degree, 50 degree, 50 degree, that water temperature is going to stay up. It's going to shoot up faster because if it's maintaining 50, it's going to shoot up during the day even more than that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's definitely good information. Good to know. I mean, so we're looking for weather. The other thing I want to talk to you about, I guess, if we could move into this maybe next, are some, like, as far as strategies, as far are we long line trolling? Are we spider rigging? I mean, what's kind of your go-to thing this time of year?
So a lot of times, and depending on the lakes I fish too, February is a great month if the water clarity's there and it's not nasty like we're dealing with now. Long line trolling is absolutely phenomenal way to cover water, learn where you're at, find fish that are scattered. Because right now, these fish are really pushed out and they're feeding. They're feeding like crazy. You see it on live scope. You can see when you're using it to where these fish aren't sitting still. They're constantly chasing bait. So to me, that's the perfect time to get out there and drag lines because you're dragging lines and fish are moving. You're covering it up. What I'm looking for as I go into creeks or river ledges is I'm looking for that bait that's all scattered. I don't want to see that bait ball just sitting there nice and pretty because that tells me those fish are comfortable aren't doing it. I want those smaller bait balls. I want to see where those bait balls are oblong, where those fish are feeding actively on that bait.
Okay, so like the irregular shapes and small.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Now that's good information because, sometimes we just, we're looking for bait and we think, you find bait, you find bait, but no, there's bait. All bait's not the same.
Well, when you find that bait, there's fish usually around all that bait. But what tells me and what works for me is when I see those smaller bait balls and I see where it's oblong, or I see where they're busted apart. That tells me I'm finding active fish. If I was going to High Rock and going to fish 3 creeks, I would ride those 3 creeks until I seen what I wanted to see. 2 of them may be loaded, have fish in them. I might not fish them, but if it's not active feeding fish, I'm looking for the active fish. Okay. That's what if I pull into a creek and they're active and I can tell that it looks like they're feeding, I'm going to fish.
Okay.
But I want to find the fish that are active. They're going to have times where they're going to just shut off. It's like a light switch. I think everybody's seen that.
Sure. Yeah, they get full or, whatever, and they're just, Yeah, I think that's a good information because we have all these complicated electronics that can show us when there's fish there. And sometimes that's maybe a little, I don't know, it doesn't really help. I mean, it does help, but it doesn't help because we see the fish, but they're not feeding fish. Absolutely. We might stay parked on fish that aren't feeding and, we should just move on. And I think that's good. That's good to know. Well, so talking about, long line trolling, let's talk maybe a little bit about that as far as, as a springtime strategy. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about, depth control, your weights, what kind of, baits you're using or presentations?
So the biggest thing a lot of people get weary of is depth control. If you're going long line troll, you're going to lose baits. You're going to break off.
Might as well get ready.
You've got to get used to it until you get comfortable doing what you're doing. The best thing that what helped me is if you go to the Crappie Connection, Brad Chappell.
Right.
He's made a chart over the years of him low lining that gets you in the general area.
Right.
Now,
okay,
how that works on my boat versus your boat versus a pontoon will be different.
Sure.
Where your rod tips, if they sit 2 inches above the water or if they're sitting 2 foot above the water, it makes a difference because the wind drag under that line.
Right.
The more wind you got on that line, it can lift those baits higher. But it gets you in the general area. Most of the time, I'm running a 16th ounce jig head.
Okay.
In the spring, you'll see me, if the fish are really scattered and I'm having to look for them, I'll drop back and run 230 seconds. I like running single jigs.
Singles, yeah.
I can get in, get out, and do what I need to.
Tangles. And
but if the fish are really scattered, like on Baden Lake, for instance, when those fish are out there and it's good clear water, we'll run doubles because they can see farther.
Okay.
And plus, if they're scattered out, I can get more presentation in the water.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I've always wondered about that, versus doing singles or doubles or whatever. But so if you're just running, if you're running singles, I mean, you're controlling your depth with your length of line you're letting out and your trolling motor speed and
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, if you're running, I can get a 16th ounce jig depending on if I'm running half a mile an hour up to 1.2. I mean, I can cover anywhere from 6 to 12, 14 foot of water depth wise. Easiest way to figure out your depths and make it work for your boat is what I done was whenever I did it. I went out and done it with 8 rods and and I was back there just ripping stuff up years ago. And I went out with Brad and learned a little bit more. But when I came home, I went out there, got 1 rod, put it together just like I was going to fish with it, the plastic, the jig head, because sometimes these jig heads plain jig heads, ones with blades, certain plastics are more buoyant than other plastics are.
Okay.
So you got to find what works for you and make sure it works in that setup. But I went out there, put that thing on, put it all together, and pinched that hook shut.
Oh, okay.
And then I went out there over a flat, or either found a hump or a flat, and I started moving until I seen where a 16th, a 30 seconds, an 1/8 ounce jig hit where I started bottoming out at what speeds. And most of mine was set up at running 0.7, 0.8 when I bottomed out to a certain speed, and then also up to 1.2 mile an hour. There's just times that it's crazy most people think you slow down. There's times where we've been running 1.2 and we just, I mean, you got to bring it by their head like a firecracker before they even want to touch it. So
as you're trolling like that, you figuring out your depth, and then you're hopefully marking fish or bait on your graph, and you're trying to present those baits, at or above the, where you're seeing crappie.
Yep.
Now, are you running different lengths of lines out the back of your boat, or are you just sort of running them all the same distance?
So most of the stuff that I'm running, I'm usually running, I'll run anywhere from 8 to a 12 rod setup. Most of them are going to be running the same depth. Once I key in,
sure,
that's when we're keying in. Now, on my outside rods, my longer rods, sometimes I'll run those up a little bit higher in the water column.
Right.
Because some of these big fish, over the years of learning, having the Garmin and LiveScope learning it, we've seen that sometimes you see these straggling fish that are sitting a little bit higher in the water column. Yeah. So sometimes I'll leave that up as a bonus rod. So that way it's a little bit higher, it catches them. But most of my rods are going to, once I key in on them, that's where I'm going to be looking at having all the baits.
Okay. Yeah. So, that's kind of cool. So you have those ones out, way out to the side. So, especially in springtime, you got those fish that are spooking out from your boat.
You got it.
And you're going to hopefully pick them up as they coast off to the sides.
And it's funny, a lot of it push off to the side, but you'd be surprised having a live scope and running it. I use the live scope while I'm online trolling.
Okay.
I love it because I'm looking 100, 120 foot out. I can see where those fish are at when I'm coming through there. If I'm fishing through there for 2 hours and all of a sudden the bite shuts off, I can look at that graph and say, hey, those fish moved down 3 foot.
Okay.
Or they moved up, or what? They're moved up. I can adjust the boat speed, adjust my line distance. I can make that adjustment quick.
Right.
Or if I'm watching the graph and I see, all right, I'm going to ease out here, and I look out and I'm running 7 foot deep, and I see those fish move down to 10, well, I can slow the boat down and drop those baits before I even get there. I can get those baits to where I want them.
That's good. No, I think it's sort of getting the maximum advantage out of your electronics that you probably already have. It's just paying attention to it and helping that information make those adjustments. As far as, and I think you've covered a lot of what we wanted to talk about today. Because we talked about looking for the scattered bait. We're talking about river ledges, mouths of creeks, that sort of thing. But we're looking for, as they stage, they move up or back, and so we're scouting. Look for bait. You're probably using the long line trolling as a method. I'll say one thing we maybe didn't really talk about yet. If you're willing to talk about this, let's talk about your your baits. So are you doing like minnows or soft plastics mostly, or both?
So we'll mix it up. Most of the time during the spring, we're pushing minnows till the spawn hits real hard because those fish are feeding. They're hitting live bait. They're going after it.
Okay.
We're long line trolling and we're tight lining and doing that. We're usually pushing minnows on that part. Long line trolling, I run just a mixture of baits. So you get on my boat when we're pulling jigs, I'll have all 16 jig heads on, but I promise you if we start the day out, unless I was out the day before and knew what they were hitting, every color's going to be different.
Okay.
Every single one's going to be different.
It's like a smorgasbord.
Yeah, I mean, it keys in a lot of times too. Is there's very few times where you'll see my boat where you see me running every single color, because a lot of times if I've got 2 black and green, I mean, blue, black, and green is just a hot color for high rod for pulling jigs. If I'm running those, you'll see me 2 or 4 of those on there. Well, if I put it all the way across and I get to a little bit different stain of water or get in a different area, if I don't have something else out there with, they may cut off of that and go to something else. Well, if I've got all those on, I just seen the bite die. Or if I've got other colors on, I could see that maybe I need to go to a little more of a pink and white, or a black and pink, because they're attracting to it a little bit more. The bite may change. So I'm always running multiple colors on everything I got.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good advice. I think, sometimes we get like a favorite color. We get emotionally attached to it because last time I was here, I caught fish on this.
Exactly.
And things change. I mean, watercolor, clarity,
cloudy days, sunlight, exactly. All that
that
plays a factor in all of it.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else that maybe I haven't set you up to talk about as far as, what we're going to do to like find those fish and put the bait in their mouth?
Yeah, the biggest thing is a lot of people that go out, maybe they don't get to fish, but once every couple of weeks or once a week or something.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ride a little bit before you start fishing.
Okay.
This time of year, these fish, there's still a lot of fish out on the river ledges and the mouths of the creeks. Like I said, we found some push back in the creeks. We found some that were starting to get shallow. This time of year, it's more of a, there's not going to be as many in there, but you can actually start to see them move.
Okay.
As you get on those fish, if you're able to spend multiple days in a row on the water and you see the temperature start to climb, pay attention. If you're out at the mouth of the creek on Friday and you've got a great weekend coming up and it's going to be warm, there's going to be no wind, it's going to be, warmer nights and sunshine all weekend, pay attention, because if you're on those fish on Friday and you're on them on Saturday morning and they're going on Saturday, I promise you, they've not moved far. You just need to start, you just start staging back.
Okay.
But pay attention to the weather. That's the biggest thing. I got 3 or 4 weather apps on my phone that I pay attention to, wind apps and all that stuff, because I want to know exactly when it's changing, when it's doing. If I've got wind changes, a good example is if you're in a creek fishing and most of that creek is 13, 14 foot deep and it's shallower in the back. If you've got light variable winds that are pushing out enough to where it's warming that water up in the back and keeping that warmer water blue axis blowing out of that creek, those fish are going to be more or less to start moving faster because they're coming out of that colder water. They feel that warmth. They're going to, once they feel it, they'll start making that move faster. There's several creeks on High Rock the same way. There's 1 or 2 creeks that fire off before anything else does, and usually it's 2 weeks before anything else does.
Really?
So, but it's all set in the wind direction and the temperature and how much shallow water they have in that creek.
That's good, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think sometimes we feel like that all these fish are doing the same thing at the same time. And they're not. So even on like one given lake, you might have fish in this creek that are sort of, they're up shallow and they're moved back in here doing their thing, and in another creek they're not. And so you might have different sort of stages going on even on the same lake.
Absolutely. Like I said, High Rock, well, the way I fish all the other lakes and the city lakes and the reservoirs, when High Rock gets on spawn, I don't want to be on the water when they start spawning hard, because they're doing their thing. I mean, it's
right.
They're not wanting it. Once they spawn and do their thing, you'll go on the bank, catch some males and do all that stuff, but they got to recoup. They're tired. They're wore out.
Sure.
So when they start getting some finicky bites on that spawn, I'll switch over, just for example, to Randleman Lake.
Okay.
Randleman Lake, it's 3-4 weeks difference in spawn. Why? Don't make any sense. But the last couple of years, water temperatures can be what it is, but it's different. They spawn later than the other ones. Well, if I say spawn's done on High Rock in March, we've called them the 1st of April, in middle of April, still full of eggs on Randleman. So, I mean, it's just different lakes and different bodies of water.
Okay. Well, good. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing all that. Some very helpful information. Is there anything else that maybe I haven't set you up to talk about as far as, this pre-spawn and spawn crappie fishing?
No, I mean, it's just it's time on the water. Time on the water is your biggest thing, and if you don't have time on the water, make some friends, make some buddies. Go to, Crappie.com is a good one to do that. Those guys report a lot on there. But find some friends that are on the water, and because if you've got 2 or 3 guys that you're buddies with and you're fishing with, and each one of y'all are fishing 1 day a week, if y'all take that information and roll it over together, everybody will be more successful. I mean, it's just more information for the pot. And I know a lot of guys don't want to share it, but there's enough fish out there. We all ain't gonna catch them all.
That's true. Yeah, especially if you fish on High Rock. I mean, there's plenty of fish.
Oh yeah,
plenty of fish to go around. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure having you in here to talk about this today. Maybe take a minute, just share with us a little bit about if somebody wants to get a hold of you, or wants to connect with you for book a trip or whatever. What's a good way to do that?
Yeah, so like I said, you can reach out to me. I've got Yadkin Lakes Crappie Guides on Facebook, or Shane Walser on Facebook, TikTok, Shane Walser Fishing on TikTok. I got Instagram. We've got a lot of new and exciting things coming up in the next couple months. So you're going to see YouTube stuff. You're going to see more interaction stuff, more giving back to the community stuff that we're going to start doing as well.
Okay.
So, but yeah, give me a call, 336-978-3737, and shoot me a text or shoot me a message on Facebook or something, and we can look at getting it set up. Or if you got questions or just a question about lake if you're coming in from out of town, shoot me a message. I answer a ton of guys that want to come fish these lakes, but they don't want to because they're so far away and need the information. There's plenty of information out there.
Yeah, that's good. Well, and I'll just say that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get Shane in here today is because a super helpful guy, and he's been helpful to me in the past, and just being willing to answer some questions and things, and so that's some good information. Appreciate you coming and being with us today.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again.
Absolutely. We'll definitely hit it again.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. And brilliant fishing out.